Decoding interrogation techniques. A detailed breakdown. The pause technique. After the suspect answers a question, the interviewer employs the pause technique, remaining silent and maintaining eye contact. This tactic often compels the suspect to share more information, increasing the likelihood of contradictions either within their statements or with known facts obtained through evidence. The peace technique. The peace technique represents a 5-stage process developed in response to the realization that psychologically coercive techniques often lead to false confessions. It facilitates a dialogue between the interviewer and the suspect, allowing the suspect to freely provide their uninterrupted version of events before any evidence of inconsistencies or contradictions is presented. The goal of this technique is to obtain a comprehensive account of events rather than solely seeking a confession. The first stage, planning and preparation, requires investigators to gather as much information as possible about the incident under investigation, including identifying individuals who need to be interviewed and determining the purpose of each interview. The second stage, engage and explain, focuses on building rapport with the suspect. This is achieved by addressing the suspect in a respectful manner, inquiring about their availability for the interview, and providing reassurance if the suspect appears anxious. The third stage, account clarification and challenge, aims to obtain a full account of events from the suspect without interruption. Once the suspect has explained what happened, the interviewer can ask follow-up questions and, in cases of contradictory information, challenge the suspect's story. The fourth stage, closure, involves summarizing the suspect's statements to ensure mutual understanding between both parties and verifying that all relevant topics have been addressed. The final stage, evaluation, requires the interviewer to assess the outcome of the interview, determine how the investigation has progressed with the new information, and identify areas for improvement in future interviews. As its name suggests, the peace technique emphasizes building rapport with the suspect to encourage cooperation. Rapid fire. In the rapid fire technique, one or more interrogators ask a series of questions in quick succession, giving the suspect little time to answer each question fully before moving on to the next one. This approach is designed to confuse the suspect and increase the likelihood of contradictory statements. Pride and ego down. This technique involves attacking the suspect's sense of personal worth, aiming to provoke a desire in the suspect to redeem their pride by cooperating. It is most effective when used against suspects who have shown emotional weakness or feelings of inferiority. However, it is also risky, as failure could result in the interviewer losing credibility and having difficulty switching to another approach. Repetition. To elicit a full and candid answer from the suspect, the interrogator repeatedly asks the same questions and repeats the suspect's answers. This repetition can lead to the suspect becoming bored and giving a full answer in an attempt to avoid further questioning. Loaded questions. Loaded questions implicitly assume certain facts are true. When used with psychologically exhausted suspects, this technique can result in unintentional slip-ups that reveal the truth or even lead to completely false confessions. Establish your identity. In this technique, the suspect is informed that higher authorities have identified them as a dangerous criminal with serious charges. This information is provided in an attempt to convince the suspect to provide true statements about what actually happened in an effort to correct this mistaken identity. The read technique. The read technique comprises a 3-phase process. Initially, the interviewer conducts a fact analysis followed by a behavior analysis. If appropriate, the interviewer proceeds with reads 9 steps of interrogation. It is advisable to continue with the 9 steps only if the initial 2 phases provide information indicating the subject's involvement in the crime. This method of interrogation is accusatory, contrasting with the standard question and answer format. It resembles a monologue delivered by the interviewer, informing the subject that the results of the investigations unequivocally point to their guilt. Throughout the interrogation, the interviewer maintains a calm and understanding demeanor, aiming to gradually make the subject more comfortable with revealing the truth. This aspect is particularly managed by the investigator, who presents various psychological justifications for the subject's behavior. Initially, the interviewer informs the suspect that investigations have identified them as a potential suspect and asks why the offense occurred, providing an early opportunity for confession. Subsequently, The interviewer attempts to shift blame from the suspect to another person or set of circumstances, psychologically justifying the suspect's actions. Meanwhile, the interviewer minimizes the suspect's denials until the suspect provides a reason for their actions. The interviewer uses body language techniques such as eye contact or proximity to ensure the suspect is receptive. If the suspect shows signs of guilt, such as crying, the interviewer interprets this as an indication of their guilt. The interviewer then presents the alternative question, offering two choices for what happened, with one choice being more socially acceptable. The suspect is expected to choose one, typically the more socially acceptable option, thereby admitting guilt. Subsequently, the interviewer leads the suspect to repeat the admission of guilt in front of witnesses to test the validity of the confession. Finally, the interviewer documents the suspect's admission or confession. Minimization and maximization. Minimization and maximization are two variations of the same tactic. In minimization, the interviewer downplays the severity of the crime, leading the suspect to believe they may receive a lesser punishment if they confess. In maximization, the interviewer exaggerates the severity of the crime, stating the most severe punishments applicable to convince the suspect that confessing will result in a lesser sentence. This technique is controversial and can lead to false confessions. Informal questioning. At times, police officers conduct field interviews without arresting individuals to avoid reading them their Miranda rights. This approach creates a facade of a normal, informal conversation while the officer gathers important information from the suspect. Another technique, similar to informal questioning, is the change of scenery technique. Here, the interviewer and suspect move to a different, more informal environment, and the interviewer continues questioning the suspect in an informal manner. This makes the suspect feel like the interrogation has ended, unaware that questioning is ongoing. Mr. Big technique. The Mr. Big technique, primarily used in Canada, involves the police fabricating a fictitious criminal organization to entice the suspect to join. They initiate contact with the suspect under casual pretenses, gradually building a relationship. This leads to the offer of a highly lucrative job involving minor criminal activities, like drug delivery. These tasks increase in significance and frequency, and the suspect is groomed as a rising star within the organization. Eventually, the suspect is introduced to Mr. Big, the supposed kingpin of the fake criminal organization, who is, in fact, an expert undercover interrogator. Mr. Big, using intimidation, informs the suspect that he has obtained incriminating evidence from the police, threatening the suspect's status within the gang. To resolve the situation, Mr. Big insists on knowing the suspect's actual actions, prompting a confession. The final meeting is recorded, and upon confession, the entire fake organization is revealed as law enforcement, leading to the suspect's arrest. This technique is typically employed as a last resort and can sometimes result in false confessions due to fear of Mr. Big or the desire to maintain the luxurious lifestyle offered by the fake criminal organization. Good cop and bad cop technique. The good cop and bad cop technique, also known as the Mutt and Jeff technique, involves two interrogators employing contrasting approaches with the suspect. One interrogator adopts a hostile stance, emphasizing threats and punishment, while the other takes a more sympathetic approach, highlighting potential rewards for cooperation. The good cop intervenes to defend the suspect from the bad cop's aggressive tactics, creating a perception of trust or fear in the suspect's mind. However, this technique has two major drawbacks. It can be easily detected by the suspect, and the aggressive tactics of the bad cop may alienate the suspect, reducing the effectiveness of the interrogation.